right, there you are. Yeah, there we go. Very
What's
cool.
up, Eddie?
What's going on, dude? This is kind of cool.
Yeah, I like it. I miss you, man. You look
I
good.
miss you too. You look good.
Thanks, buddy.
Everybody's looking good. Everybody's like taking care of themselves in quarantine and whatnot. You know, still
To
getting
everybody
set
that
up
I
here.
see, you can see like that this has been beneficial for their physical appearance. I think like most people that I run into, they're all like looking good and they're feeling good and they're rested. You know?
Well, you know what I think that is, and you know what? Initially, I was gonna like cut out the first 5 minutes, but I don't think I'm gonna because we're already doing awesome.
Yeah, go for it.
What I think is pretty cool is people have taken this as like an opportunity and said, you know, I'm not gonna let this hold me down. I'm not gonna let this break me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the time to take the best care of myself that I can. You know, that's definitely what I did. That's definitely what I was thinking. You know. As we went into this, I was like, this is a good opportunity for me to take some time for me, do things that I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
What have you been up to? How's quarantine been treating you? Have you like taken on any new project, any art project or something like that?
No, I haven't really taken on any new projects. I've just kind of gone deeper into all the stuff that I was already incorporating in my life, you know?
Right.
And to be honest with you, for me, quarantine has been, I think you froze. Oh, no, there you go. Quarantine has been the time of my life, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome to hear. Like,
just having the time to wake up, you know, be with myself, meditate, do Tai Chi, prepare my food in a relaxed manner instead of rushing out the door, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely nice.
It's been wonderful, man.
So let me do the plug.
Wonderful.
This is the first one. You're supposed to start with the plug, but I'm going to do the plug now. So thank you, everybody who might be watching or listening or wherever you are to Temple Podcast. This is the first interview episode, and I'm here with Chris. Correct me if I pronounce your last name wrong. I never say it out loud. Molinet?
Yeah, that's like the correct French pronunciation, but I grew up with it being pronounced Molinet. But either way.
Molinet?
As I got older, I started to appreciate the Molinet, you know, like the French pronunciation.
Right. Like my last name is DePasquale, but everyone says DePasquale because of the E at the end, but it's supposed to be silent, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and let me say thank you, buddy, for doing this. This is a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I've enjoyed it.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I had to take a big break. I actually just finished writing another like scripted solo episode, so I'm probably going to be releasing that in a few hours after we record this. And then I had a debacle. I was supposed to do an interview yesterday. Or Saturday actually, and it got totally shot. There was an issue with the Zoom account. I had to call and be able to record on the cloud, and I don't have a computer right now. I need a computer to get the Zoom recordings, but I'm going to make it happen. And that's what this has all been about. It's just like, even if one person watches this and it's like, whoa, this dude's like out there grinding, making it happen. Like, I better be out there grinding and making it happen too, you know?
Adapting to the challenges, you know what I mean? That's
exactly. So Chris and I met in massage school. For everybody who's out there in the world, Chris and I met in massage school. He's a very gifted massage therapist.
Thanks, and I lost you for a minute. Hold on, bud. I don't know how to get you back.
You lost me? I got you fine.
Yeah. Oh wait, here we go. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
There we go. All right, cool. So yeah, Chris, actually, I wanted to pick your brain today about myofascial release and what that is, because not a lot of people know about it, and you're my guy that I go to for that. So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me about myofascial release and why you picked that as like your, everyone kind of picks a specialty in their modality. Like I like Asian body work and trigger points, and you like myofascial. Like what drew you to that?
Okay. So I'll tell you my introduction to it and what got me into it. And then I'll tell you why I've become so drawn to it. And it's become a staple of my practice and really of my entire life. Right. So have you ever met Renata, my girlfriend Renata?
I have not, actually. We were supposed to all get together, and then the world shut down.
Yeah.
We were planning a day where we would all get together.
Her dad is an MD. He's a medical doctor up in Worcester, Massachusetts. And he's just a terrific guy. He's a really open guy. He's unlike a lot of MDs. He's really open-minded. He embraces a lot of alternative therapies. And he introduced me when I told him that I was thinking about changing my career and going into body work. He said, you got to check out Myofascial Release by this guy named John Barnes. He took a bunch of his classes, and he also introduced me to craniosacral therapy, which is a part of the myofascial release that I do. So,
and craniosacral therapy that's the repositioning of the bones of the cranium, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. There is a mechanistic aspect to it where you actually deal with the rhythms of the cranial bones and the spine and the sacrum. And then there's a little bit more of a fluid dynamic approach called biodynamic craniosacral, which is what really interests me, which is kind of where my interest in it is going and where I put my practice into. And
Please continue. Yeah.
I'll explain a little bit about that too. So anyway, throughout school, I was kind of just getting interested in this myofascial release stuff. And then before school ended, I took a course in Portland, Maine with John Barnes. And it really opened me up to the possibility of what body work was and what it can be. And the way that he was teaching was so holistic in the sense that he was not just talking about anatomy and the physical structures that we're working on, which is a huge part, but the emotional body, that, the emotional aspect of the human being, and how that translates into physical stress or physical tension, and how you cannot treat one without the other. It's impossible, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let me explain a little bit about the technique. So obviously, for anyone watching that doesn't know what fascia is a connective tissue within our body. It basically connects our entire body from head to toe. It's this completely interconnected web that infuses every bone, every nerve, organ, everything. All the tissues in our body are completely connected by fascia. And fascia has two components, which is a fibrillar component. So there's like fibrous elements to it. And then there's the ground substance, which they also call the extracellular matrix, which is really more like this kind of viscousy fluid. And it's supposed to allow for slide. So our tissues, when we move, there should be a free-flowing slide, right? Tissues are supposed to glide on top of one another and move. And often what happens through trauma, stress, injury, repetitive patterns of misuse in our body, that tissue will harden, will dry out, and will get stuck. And people will stretch it, people will move it, but when the fascia really gets into that hardened kind of locked position, it's difficult to open it. So what myofascial release does is use gentle, sustained pressure into those restrictions. And the key element that John Barnes teaches, there's a lot of different approaches to myofascial release. Like there's like Rolfing, like what Ida Rolf taught and what Tom Myers teaches. And the traditional form of myofascial release was a little bit more aggressive. There was like this kind of forcing the tissue to open up, which was effective but painful, and
kind of like trigger point release. Somewhat, and in the same manner that works, where you can expect to feel an intense discomfort or a radiation down that pathway, that meridian or pain pathway, neural pathway, But
no, there's
ultimately it relieves. Yeah.
So with the John Barnes approach to myofascial release, it's this kind of gentle, sustained pressure, and it's the time element. So he always taught that he's been teaching this, I don't know, since 80s or 90s or I think probably a long time ago, before fascia became this kind of buzzword, But
never thought I would hear fascia as a buzzword, but yeah, you are right. In the the holistic health community, especially, people are using that. People hear it and they're like, "Oh, that means that guy knows what he's talking about."
It's absolutely. But so the key to the technique that I do is the sustained time element. So the way that John Barnes teaches it, and do you ever see the video called "Strolling Under the Skin"?
It sounds familiar. I feel like we watched that in class. I feel like we watched that with Becker.
They showed it.
We watched that. Yeah.
It was made by a guy named Jean-Claude Gambarteau. He's a surgeon. But what he started,
and now, was that scrolling or strolling under the skin?
Scrolling with a T.
Strolling. Okay.
So he's a surgeon, but when he would do his hand surgeries, he started doing endoscopy. So like magnified video of the tissues in vivo. So while they're still alive, so it's not a dissection, it's not dead tissue. He was studying live tissue in a way that was never really done before. And that his research kind of opened up the field of fascia and really reinforced what John Barnes has been teaching all along, that in order to really release the fascial tissue, you need to have a sustained pressure or tension in that tissue for up to 2 minutes and more. So the way that John Barnes teaches it is that there's, within the fibrillar element of fascia, the fibers, there's an elastic component, which is kind of what will release right away. Like if you stretch for like 10, 15 seconds, and you feel a little bit of an opening, that's the elastic portion of the fascia that's around the muscles, under the skin, around the bones. That's that opening up. But to really,
like for instance, the hip that when you worked on my right hip in the clinic, I still have a significant improvement on that hip versus my left one. Like I need you to do the left. Like you got to balance me out, you know?
Cool.
And I feel that. So for anybody who's listening, that from the recipient's perspective, from my perspective, when he did that, because Chris and I went to school together, we worked on each other plenty of times. When he did that myofascial release on me in the clinic at New York College, it felt almost like a pleasurable burning. Like I felt the fibers releasing, and it was a little fiery feeling, you know, like almost like a friction burn, even though there was no friction. It was just constant tension. It was almost uncomfortable, but completely bearable. And my range of motion in my hip through all my kicks is still significantly better on my right leg than on my left.
That's so great. I'm so glad to hear that. I like the way that you described it as a pleasurable burn, because when you work into these tissues that are locked up, your brain, which is not used to seeing movement in that area, or not used to getting that kind of stimulation, that kind of mechanoreception, it's going to interpret it as pain, right?
Right, because your nociceptors are going to fire up.
Exactly.
So the other thing for the nerds listening who want to know what a nociceptor is, most of your textbooks, they're going to call them pain receptors, and I believe, and I'm sure you might agree with me, that that's actually an incorrect observation of what a nociceptor is. That they're more apt to be called danger receptors, because pain is perception. Pain is an output of the brain. They tell your brain that you are potentially in danger, and then they elicit a pain response with that. So you go, oh no, the stove is hot, and you pull your hand away real quick. But then you have people who can hold their hand over a flame because they know they're not going to get burned. So
it's all about the evaluation that happens inside your brain and how your brain interprets that situation. But what I liked about what you said about it being a pleasurable burn was that, so yeah, it was uncomfortable, but there was something in you that said, wait a minute, this is something that I need. This is something that's good for me. And I think that's how you know you're on the right path when you're working, because if something just hurts, your system, everything internally, you're going to go into a fight or flight reaction. Everything's just going to fight back. So that's what I love about myofascial release, is that it's done in a way that's really slow and sustainable and manageable. And even the most sensitive of clients, because I know you must know that some people you can press into their tissue and they're like, oh yeah, go, let's get more. And other people are like, whoa, 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 jump, so there's
some people you can kneel on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can kneel on them, and other people. Oh, we got some visitors. Hold on. Here's Coco.
Hi, Coco.
Coco's coming to visit.
Hey, Coco.
Marty's over here too.
Coco and Marty.
Here we go. Coco and Marty.
Hi, Marty.
Coco and Marty coming to hang out. All right. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's continue. They're going to attack me.
Interruption worth it. But like I was saying, so you described it as a pleasurable burn. So there's something in you that's saying that this is good for me, and that's what really kind of attracted me to this type of technique, because it can really, it works for everybody. You can use it in a very sustainable way with any client that you're working with, and even the most sensitive of people. And it really puts people into a very relaxed state. Now, back a little bit prior to what we were talking about when I was saying the two components of the fascia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how if you just stretch a little bit, that you're opening up the elastic component.
Mm.
If you wait into that tissue, right, and you maintain that tension, eventually what will happen is the collagenous, so the collagen portion of the fascia, will begin to release, and that's when you get true tissue change. So you have to stay into that barrier of restriction through the elastic release, and wait, and then eventually it'll be like taffy opening up, and that's the collagenous barrier of the tissue releasing, and through that you can open up all sorts of new sensory input to the body. You will feel it, like you said, since we did that work, you feel your kicks differently. So
yeah,
it opens
absolutely
new possibilities for your internal body, for your mind, for your heart, you know.
How I describe it to clients a lot, and I feel like this is also one I took from. I have not an original thought. It's just all a big mash of things I've learned from others.
Is there even such a thing as an original thought? Honestly,
no. We're all in a collective, man. We're all thinking it together. You know, we're all in a collective. But it's like if I take my shirt and I twist it, you see that other parts of my shirt start to move all over the place. So this fascial web that binds, now this web that Chris mentioned earlier, it will even go between your myofibers, the individual strands of myofilaments. Your fascia will weave in and out of that. So if you've got a knot, let's say near your IT band, and you're having trouble stretching your hamstring, it is 1,000% related.
Absolutely. And in fact, so speaking of the fascia that goes through the myofibrils, there's been a lot of research that shows that when the myofibers of the muscle tissue contract, it's actually, so what really creates the movement is the pulling into the fascial tissue that's in between those fibers. So you have these cross links, right? So as it contracts, it's pulling the fascia, and the fascia is really what's responsible for the movement. Like, yes, the muscle tissue is doing the contraction. That is the tissue that is shortening, but it's the actual force transmission of movement is being sent through the fascial tissue. And I love that.
Like marionettes, right? Just getting pulled
I love that
by our muscles.
So, because as people who practice martial arts, the deeper we go into martial arts, the more we can start to understand the concept of truly moving from center and truly moving as a unified structure and what that really means. So that's another reason why fascia and myofascial release appealed to me so much, because I was already a practicing martial artist. This approach to treatment and this idea of how the body moves and functions, as opposed to the traditional, really just mechanistic idea of, you know, this muscle contracts and moves this, and gravity is pulling the whole structure down, and it's being supported like a wall, and that's not what we are. We're not a compression structure. We're a biotensegritous unit. You know what I mean? What's keeping us up is not just gravity pulling us down, but there's this interplay of tension all throughout our body that works in unison.
Anatomy Trains actually just showed up to my house, and I am so excited to read this book. I'm so excited to read that book.
I read the introduction and the first two.
That's like the whole book, you know? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it really is, because the rest of it is like, there's really great stuff in it, and it's just kind of showing the lines, and it's really kind of an anatomy book. But the beginning is like the theory of what Anatomy Trains is, what they're trying to relay with that book, and how that view of how to look at the body to treat it in a whole different way. And I read that so many times because it just, every time I read it, it was like something new that I was getting out of it, you know, and I was learning more and more and more. He's a guy that I want to classes with eventually, Tom Myers.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
So, how has not being able to treat been on your psyche as a massage therapist? Has it been frustrating?
So it's been difficult because I love to treat. I love working. I really do, you know, but I don't know. It's also like in my mind, I just was like, this will be okay. I'll be back to this eventually. And there was a certain level of disappointment, you know, but I would never say that it got to the point of frustration. It was kind of just like, well, I would like to be doing that. You know, I would like to be treating people and working. But here's the thing. So during this time, I almost felt like I was working on my craft. So everything I do is to work on my craft. You know what I mean? Get better at what I do as far as being a massage therapist, right? The myofascial release work that I do, and being a martial artist. Those are like my arts. That's where my artistic expression comes out. So even though I was not able to have as much hands-on time with people, like obviously I treated my girlfriend Renata, and
Jenny's been getting as much as I can give, basically. she's working at a new salon now that they're allowed to work again, and
cool.
it was terrible. She had one shift there and was so excited about being there. Vasari in Kings Park. You guys are on Long Island. She had one shift there, and then we went into quarantine.
Also, started working there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we went into quarantine, which was just like, oof, really, really rough. But so that's finally starting to open back up again. So that's pretty cool. And so now, and that's why I'm going into business for me now, which was ultimately the goal. That was ultimately what I wanted to do anyway. So like that's why I'm doing it for myself. And I've been trying to keep my skills up by working on her. She's one of those tough clients, very sensitive, lots of things that have been there for a long time. And that's the other thing. People who have had issues, this has hurt forever. It just hurts. And then they get used to the pain, and then it kind of goes away. Resolving that, oh my God. It's literally, you're opening a can of worms.
Yeah.
Because that tensegritis net that you were talking about, the concept of tensegrity, even just to begin with, that one piece that's holding up all the other pieces. So you touch the one spot and all the others light up, and it to somebody inexperienced, you can almost feel like you were causing issues, but it's really just you're eliminating the hard shell that these muscles have been encapsulated in, right? These muscles have been encapsulated, like we'll just use her as an example. So 10 years of holding your arms like this through hair, right? That's going to cause a lot of issues in the upper back. But then you start to release what's going to be the most important point to start to release. It's going to be up here in the upper traps. As soon as that starts to release, now you have everything that's been hiding in the rhomboids and in the lats and in teres screaming now, like, help me too, Like they have all these other issues, and then it starts to bind back up to put yourself in that seemingly protected shell, because the muscles think that they're going to be damaged if they leave this state that they're in, this imbalanced, stuck state. They think that's where they're supposed to be, and that anything else is going to be damaged or anatomically incorrect, and you have to re-educate the musculature into operating normally.
Absolutely, and it's hard. And I think, like you said, so when you break through that hard shell a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You open all this new awareness that they did not have before. So it can seem like you're causing that issue, because we all walk around feeling certain parts of our bodies, and then other parts are just, we don't really feel them. You know what I mean? We shut them up. Like you said, so if you're in a position like this all day for years, you're going to stop feeling that. You're not
Right.
going to have the awareness of it. And then the second that you open that awareness up, it can be a jarring experience.
Yes, 100%. And the
Yeah.
healing process is a very long and non-linear one.
There's never an end to healing.
Well, I always feel like people are doing well when they're like you, who, you look like you're 28 and you're not. So, yeah, you're very welcome. But, so that's usually a good indicator that people are on the right track. But this has been a great opportunity to start to practice and focus more on Tai Chi. So talk to me a little bit about your Tai Chi training and how that's been for you. Because I know everybody's got a very different experience. There's so many different styles and family systems of Tai Chi.
Yeah. So my introduction to the world of martial arts was, again, through Renata's dad. So he was doing Qigong.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together 8 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's just, we have a wonderful companionship and friendship, and so it's wonderful, But her dad was doing Qigong, and I'd never seen anything like that before. I'd never heard of anything like that before. And at the time, I think I was like in my early 30s, and I was throughout my 20s, I would do like P90X and CrossFit and stuff like that. And I was able to carry that through my 20s with all this kind of stuff inside, and my youth carried me through, Yeah. And then as I started to get a little bit older, that wasn't
Jing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Jing starts to run out, man. The Jing starts to run out.
You keep just pounding away like a locomotive and expecting your body to be able to adapt. And I found that's what happened to me. I hit that point in my life, and I no longer could or wanted to do that type of exercise consistently. So I saw Qigong from Renata's dad, John Pfister, and it opened my eyes to being able to go to exercise, to feel like I'm doing something, but in a way that felt sustainable, like I wasn't going to burn myself out.
Right.
So that was my introduction, and then I slowly started to move into Tai Chi with a guy in New York City named Joe Zysky, who was a great teacher. He taught Yang style. I really liked.
And again, there's so many different versions of Yang style as well. It's so fun.
Yeah, we taught the Chen Men Ching version, but also it was a little bit different. So because at school they teach the Chen Men Ching, Yang style, and there was slight differences to the form. You know what I mean? Like little things that Joe, I think, added or didn't add. But I did that for a really long time. Then I started working with a guy in Melville named Pete Landini. He had a place called Silkwind Studio. He taught a style called Wuji. It's a derivative of Chen style. And really love it. I still practice that one. I still do Bagua with him. But one of my teachers now in Oceanside, he teaches Wu style, small stance, small frame Tai Chi. And that seems to be where my heart really is. Like that's where I just feel there's like this calling to go deeper and deeper into this form. And I feel like by going into this form with this teacher, it's allowing me to go deeper and deeper into the art in a way that is nothing short of profound, really. Like, how martial arts practices are. It's
a spiritual experience. It really, and it should be. And I feel like for everybody out there who's an atheist and they're like, those jujitsu bros, like not to talk shit about anybody, like specifically, I'm not doing any of that. But if you're talking about like the stereotypical, like jujitsu bro who's rolling around on the mat and they're having a beer after they're done, like in the school type thing, they're still having a spiritual experience, even if they deny it. They're tapping into their primal instincts. Yeah. Anything, even in Tai Chi or Qigong, you have any of those motions that include that. Now I don't know if your system talks about 3 dantians the way that ours does.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you got an old school system as well. So the 3 dantians, the 3 main gates. So people who aren't aware of this, in TCM, in traditional Chinese medicine, I'm like looking at the other camera as if that's the audience, right? I'll cut now. Cut. Camera 2.
I was wondering what you're looking at down there. You have another.
Yeah, there's the other camera and the dogs. Because I got the 2 dogs running around. Marty and Coco. I got the 2 dogs are running around and trying to make sure that they don't want to go inside. Coco's just sunbathing right now. Marty's over here. And then I set up another camera because I'm going to upload everything later and try to like splice it, make it look nice, and try to put the video version on YouTube. I'm just trying to figure out how to do that on like Jen's iPad. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm working with right now. I'm making it happen, people. But anyway, so the point that I was trying to say, in TCM, you learn about Tantian, which is just the main gate at the bottom. But in my system of Qigong and Tai Chi and Chris's as well, we learned that there's three. So you have an important point here in your conception vessel, but that's also to us known as the second Dantian, and then the first up here, which is your spiritual connection. So in TCN, they take out the spiritual side of things, boom, which is why you have one Dantian, because they forget that we come from yin and yang and meet in the middle, and that's where we live. We live here at the second Dantian. But if any of those movements and you bring that chi into the third dantian down here, you feel that, because that's also where your sacral chakra is, if you want to talk about that understanding, and then your root chakra. So all your primal energy is still down here, and you feel that. You feel that like testosterone, that yang testosterone-ness of it, and you're experiencing that. You need to celebrate all aspects of who you are as a human being, and martial arts does that, and especially a martial art like Chinese martial arts that are, you know, soft style, because you're learning how to move your body in unison. You learn how to move slowly so that you can move explosively with precision, and people don't understand that's what the point is. Like, what's the point of moving so slow? It's so that you can, if like practical application, you can move with explosiveness, with precision. If I can move that slowly, I know I can really bang out that straight line. I can really put all my jing behind that strike. And then spiritually, you learn to be alone with yourself, one with yourself. The moving side of things gives your body and mind something to do, so that way you can kind of like filter through your thoughts and actually meditate and be alone with yourself and have spiritual experiences and be able to slow it down. Then you have standing posture Qigong, which, you know, just being the Jinggung, being the energy, just woof, and standing there, and you start to sway with the earth and feel your body's own frequency. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Life in a whole different way.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a terrific practice.
Especially when you're doing it like in a classroom full of people, because it's that concept of one candle. You know, one candle in a room sheds only so much light, but then multiple candles, their light combines and amplifies. And it's the same thing with your energy. It's the same thing when you're doing Tai Chi. That's why yoga classes are so popular, because they're having the same effect. And again, whether they're traditional spiritual yoga practitioners or they're doing yoga fit, it's the same. It's how we're wired, whether you want to admit it or believe it or not. It's part of humanity. It's part of who we are. We should celebrate it.
The connection of community is a really, really strong experience. And like you said, even if you're in a class that's not really embracing that spiritual side, you are having that experience. Totally.
And how has Tai Chi affected? Because I have a lot to say about how it's affected me as a massage therapist, but how has being a Tai Chi practitioner affected your journey as a massage therapist?
So it's affected every aspect of my life, right? Everything that I do is informed by my practice of Tai Chi and mindfulness, but it's directly. So it's all about feeling. When you're doing myofascial release or any body work, it's all about really being present with who you're working on, who you're working with, the person that you're treating. It's about being there totally for that experience, for that person. So that's what Tai Chi is to me. Tai Chi is the ultimate practice of mindfulness, about being here, being present, non-judgmentally, patient. That's Tai Chi to me. So to have that practice translate over to myofascial release, it's all, you know, the letting go of Tai Chi, of letting go to your structure and to your alignment, and continuously going into a state of relaxation. That translates so well to body work, because it makes you more sensitive, right? It makes you able to feel more. And the more that you can shut your mind off, right? And instead of knowing in your mind or making this idea of what is happening here or what this person needs, the more you can just listen and say, I'm just going to be here and listen. see what presents itself in this present moment. I think that's the magic of body work, of Tai Chi. It's about just kind of letting go and being in the present moment, stripping away all agendas, what you think is going to happen, and learning in that moment with the person that you're. Sorry, the fight.
A fight?
Yeah, somebody's yelling at somebody in a car.
Whatever, that's fine. Welcome to Long Island, right?
But that's how it's directly affected my practice. It's really helped me go deeper into being present with myself and my mind and my heart and my body. And by being able to do that more fully, being myself more fully, it's helped me be a better therapist for other people, because in that moment it's not about me or what I think, it's about being there with this person,
Right.
I think you can learn so much by just letting go and seeing what happens,
letting go and taking care of somebody else. It's like, it's almost, I know we make money doing it, but it's like almost this act of selflessness, because you are completely turning off, like even in moments like where it's like, this really hurts my shoulder right now, but I'm in the perfect spot for them, so I have to not move and remember that for next time, when I get into this position, to not be in this position because, ow, this hurts. And you just kind of let it sit there. Or like when you're on a trigger point and you know that if you let your thumb out of that tissue, that their tissues are going to rebound and you're going to make their problem that much worse. But your thumb is like, God help me, like screaming into your hand. There's been so many moments where like I take my hands off of people, especially when my fingers weren't so developed into doing what we're doing, and your hands are like, you can't close them yet because you've been pressing into something for so long. You don't realize like how much of how much you're giving to this person.
100%, yeah. And I think that's where martial arts is so effective, because you learn to do more with less. You know what I mean? So I remember when I first started, I was just trying so hard. I was like, I'm really gonna make this tissue open, and this person's gonna have an amazing experience, and I'm gonna make this happen. And I was wasting so much energy with that, and I would get results sometimes, but with the amount of energy that I was wasting and pouring away, I was not getting as good of results as I could have. So without me trying to force someone's body open, or someone's tissue to open, or someone to allow to have that kind of acceptance of their body, to allow it to open, by learning to not force that, I've stopped wasting so much energy, been much more present with my clients, and had so much better results.
Yeah, I tell people to give it 6 to 8 weeks, and they're like, 6 to 8 weeks? I'm just here for a massage. And it's like, okay, well, here's the breakdown of the 6-week thing. It's like the first week is an introductory. You don't know me, I don't know you. I don't know your body, and you don't know my hands either. And now we have to establish trust. So the first thing is I need to scan, I need to learn your tissues, and you need to address the issues that you came in with, and I have to do an honest assessment. And the assessment really happens during the treatment, It's not after or before, or you could waste half an hour doing all these tests before you let them get down and whatever. Situationally, obviously. If somebody comes to you with an injury, I can't move my shoulder, you're going to do empty can, you're going to do things like that and see what's going on with their system, what's going on with their vehicle, But that first treatment is really about getting to know one another and seeing what the limits are of their range of motion, what they can do, how much pressure they can handle, and what's really happening. And do you need to send them to an MD? Do they need to get further testing? Do they need an X-ray? Do they need a CAT scan? Something like that. The second treatment is where you start really getting into it. Second treatment is when I'm going to start to break out cups. That's for me. You know what I mean? We're going to cup and we're going to follow this pattern. And I have a feeling, I know that this is going down the gallbladder channel. So let me explain to you what the gallbladder channel is. And this is how it relates to your musculature, because the gallbladder is responsible for sinews, fascia, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. You make those connections, right? Then I'll do my cupping, do some releases. Week 3, we get deeper. Week 4, we get deepest. That's usually by the time we've released all those layers. And week 4 is the week where it's like, we didn't have time for your arms this week because we spent 45 minutes releasing this one muscle. You know what I mean? That I'll do it like treatment number 4. And they have to be coming weekly and allow their bodies to recover. And then week 5 and 6 is the oil changes. It's you rebuilt the engine and you change the oil. Then they got to put 1,000 miles on it and come back and do another oil change to flush out everything else. So week 5 and 6, yeah, exactly. Week 5 and 6 is the flush, the fluid change, the redirection of energy, the making sure all those pathways stay running the way they're supposed to run, that you put all the lines back in the right spot, you crossed all the wires you're supposed to cross. You know what I mean?
I love it.
And then it's maintenance or addressing any future issues that may happen down the road. And again, that depends. And I say 6 to 8 weeks because, like we had said earlier, you get to week 3 and you start doing all these releases, and then it's like, oof, I tried to work this out and I hurt myself, or I didn't wait long enough after that release and I tried to do an exercise and I tore something, or you released this pattern and now my left leg feels better, but now my right leg is hurting me for some reason. Why? And it's like, oh, well, that one's been compensating for a long time. So now we need to add 2 weeks to it to address the releases on both sides to deal with your compensation. There's so many factors that people don't realize. And there's so many, like this podcast, the whole purpose of this podcast is to dispel the myths and misinterpret and dispel the way people misinterpret what massage therapy really is and what we can do for people. You know, like we only went to school for 2 years, and I feel like we could have had a master's or a bachelor's at least in massage therapy. We could have kept going. You know, like the education should have continued. There's people like us that take it upon ourselves to study on our own and to really learn as much. You were still in school and traveling to go to myofascial release classes. Like that to me was insanity. I couldn't believe you handled that and retained all the information. So applause to you. But like, you know, just being in school, there was so much more education that we could have used, that we could have needed, and that some people just didn't grasp the material because they didn't take the time, you know, to really put all those pieces together. And then there's people like us who gravitated towards each other because we were nerds and we like to talk about all the finite details and to really figure things out, you know? And that's what I think sets certain people apart. And I want to make sure that those people are highlighted and that their intellect is highlighted. And then people can watch this and listen and realize that massage therapy is so much more than just like, you know how tired I am of like having a friend of mine who's a guy, be like, this isn't gay, right?
Dude, yeah.
You know how tired I am of that? Like,
everybody, you know, out of all the people that I tell, you know, like I'm a massage therapist, I'd say like a pretty high percentage, maybe not quite 50, but pretty close to 50, will make some sort of comment about either homosexuality or happy endings. You know,
yeah,
something like that. And that is something that I'm, you know, if that went away completely, I would be pretty happy about that. I would
be very, very pleased, very, very pleased if that all went away and people understood that we are medical professionals who work in the healthcare industry, and we are just doing our best to take care of the people that we see as clients. So for, you know what I mean? Like, the thing is, that's why I couldn't go back to the spa. You know what I mean? I had I love the people there. You know what I mean? Like I get to work with Xavier and all, you know, like Jakelin. As far as I know, really well. Last I heard they were doing really well, and he's went right back to school for acupuncture. So I'm not sure how that's going right now with quarantine and lockdown. I really haven't kept in touch too much over the past couple of months. But last we spoke, he was doing really well, and so was everybody else. Everybody's getting, you know, it's phase 3 now, so they're all getting ready to go back to the Dreaming Tree, and wonderful, wonderful place. But for me, I needed to take this opportunity to like jump off and like start something for myself and start something for me, and dispel the spa things, you know, dispel the what's the word I'm thinking of? Stereotypes. The spa stereotype of massage therapy.
The way that you're describing your work and how you're you have a plan of 6 to 8 sessions at least, that's not really something you could do in a spa environment. It's not really, I mean, spas, the treatments that you get in spas are fantastic. They can be absolutely therapeutic. They can be terrific and wonderful. But I think the way that you are looking to treat someone in kind of like a systematic way, in the sense that, okay, we're going to take this step by step and approach your pain concerns and have a plan in how we're going to approach it. I think that's more difficult to do in a spa environment. And I think most of the people that come to spas aren't necessarily looking for that. Some people just want a relaxation massage, which is great.
Well, that's awesome too. And the other thing people don't realize, it's like, oh, well, if you're doing this, like, how come you put music on and you're this and you're that? Say, okay, well, there's purposes for everything. And people don't also, we have been led by media and by the pharmaceutical companies to believe that we cannot heal ourselves, that what you need is ibuprofen and Tylenol. You know what I mean? You're starting to crash, go grab a soda, spike that sugar. You know what I mean? You know, all you need is an 1/8 cup of coffee for the day. You're going to be fine. You know what I mean?
I think you're right.
Or Band-Aids or ice or bullshit like that. That doesn't necessarily work. You know, what were you saying?
We've forgotten or choose not to look at as a society that we are self-regulating as human beings. What we do all day long is heal and create. We're constantly creating new cells. We're creating new life. We're in this constant state of creation. Always.
New body every 7 years. Brand new body every 7 years.
Yeah, and you can, that happens moment to moment, choice by choice, in our lives. So, like you said, we're taught to think that we should go to we grow up learning that we need to, if we're sick, if we don't feel well, we have to go to someone, they're going to fix us, and then we can go back to eating McDonald's and, sitting around on the couch all day and playing video games or doing whatever, and not actually looking inward. Because the healer is all in all of us. It's in here. It's always in here and in here. Even when we're doing work on people, if there's a change that occurs in a person's body,
I feel it.
I was providing. What?
I said, I feel that when that happens.
Dude, that's the magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're being invited into that space of healing and change that's occurring within another human being. That's like a sacred thing. I could talk all day about just that.
Yeah.
But that release that's happening in a person's body, that change, that's coming from them. All the healing is coming from inside. All of the healing is coming from our own sense, our own internal wisdom. All we're doing as therapists is helping guide that person to be able to become aware of that again in whatever their body we're working on. If we're working on their leg, we're providing stimuli in order for the client to be able to connect with the internal healing wisdom of their body. And when that happens, that's them. We were there to help them and guide them, but that's all them. All the healing is all internal, and we're all capable of healing ourselves with help of others. Obviously, we all need a sense of community and help and guidance, but the real healer is in here, man. In all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. You heal yourself, and you have to give yourself the environment in order to heal. You have to make your body the correct environment for healing. It's like I'll put it this way. Like, there's people who intermittent fast, or they do keto, you know what I mean? And they eat bacon, and that's all they eat. Or they intermittent fast for 22 hours, and they eat for 2 hours a day, and they go, I didn't eat for 22 hours. I can have whatever the hell I want. And then they're still chubby. They still have a belly, and they wonder, oh, this won't go away. It's because I'm 30. You know what I mean? It's not because you're 30. It's because like, for me, for instance, like, I was fat since I'm 8 years old. So, like, the little bit of belly that I still have has literally been there my entire life. It's going to take some time. But, like, But for other people, it's just about your health. It stops becoming about what you look like and about that last 5 pounds of fat, which is what you get sold. If you're not shredded, you're not in shape. You know what I mean? That's what you get sold, that you have to have a body fat percentage of 8% and look like Jeff Cavalier from Athlean X 100% of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you're not in shape. It's really more about what you can do, what your mobility and flexibility is like. Some people are genetically predispositioned to be leaner than others, you know? But if you're fasting for 22 hours and you go and you eat, 2,000 calories in McDonald's, you still just put trash in the end, you know? You put garbage into the tank, and you're not going to give yourself that permission to heal. And the same thing is if you go to a massage therapist and let's say you go to a massage therapist, they do some releases on your leg, and then you still feel some tension. So you go home and you get the Theragun and you start beating the shit out of yourself with the Theragun. You're not giving yourself the environment in which to heal, because rest and relaxation and all that is all part of that healing environment. You go to the gym and you work out, but you work out 7 days a week. You never get the opportunity to heal if you're just lifting for those 7 days a week. One of those days you should stretch. One of those days maybe just don't do anything. Just sit in the sauna. If you still got to get up and go to the gym in the morning and do something, go for a walk for a couple miles and then go sit in the sauna if you got to do something every single day. You need to give yourself the opportunity to rest and relax. And the point that I was trying to make earlier when I was like, why do you still do the music? Why do you still do this? Why do you still relax? And everyone doesn't talk and it's like a meditation. Is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and give yourself the chemical composition in your body in order to heal and start to rest and relax. You need to shut down the production of cortisone and, enhance the production of norepinephrine is the hormone I'm thinking of, right? Am I having a brain fart right now? That's right?
Yeah, there's a lot of chemicals that are in a parasympathetic state, like, serotonin. And,
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
serotonin, serotonin, dopamine, all those chemicals. You want more production of those naturally, rather than through stimulus to try to overcome your sympathetic nervous system reaction to your chronic pain. Now, since we are on the topic of Tai Chi, do you have a recommendation for people who may not have the opportunity or the finances? Like, do you have a recommendation for people where people can go for information? Because my answer is always come to the school. My answer is always come to the Kung Fu school. That's always my answer to everything, because this place is helped me so much.
The way that I got started was just going online and just finding different things. Like, I went on Amazon.
Finding what works for you.
There was a bunch of free Qigong videos on Amazon Instant Video. And I was like, all right, let me check these out. And that was a great step into the door. You know what I mean? And I started doing it once a week or twice a week. And then after a couple of weeks, I realized, I wanted more and more and more. But that was the way that I started. But there's a bunch of teachers that I would recommend, like Silkwind Studio, which sadly, there's a guy, Pete Landini, in Melville, who sadly with quarantine, their studio is now closed. They're not reopening, but he is going to continue teaching in some way. I recommend him highly. If you live by me, there's a teacher in Oceanside, Master Runkel. His first name is Runkel. And I never know how to pronounce this Chinese last name. Yuan? Y-U-A-N. Why?
Yeah, it's like yuan. It's like, that's the same word for money, I believe.
Oh, really? Well, he is money.
I think so. He is money? He is money. This man's money.
He's great. I work with him one-on-one, and it's terrific.
We've got Zoom classes going on right now, too, if you ever want to come check them out,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if you ever want to check out the Zoom classes, that would be pretty cool to have you pop on with us.
Yeah, but if people have interest, if anyone listening to this has any interest in the first step into all of this stuff, all those things are great, but establish a mindfulness practice.
Yes, that's really where I thought you were going to end up going with that.
John Kabat-Zinn, his books are were my first introduction into mindfulness, and he describes mindfulness in the most simplest way. All mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment, non-judgmentally. That is it. So it's this incredibly simple yet profoundly complex and difficult practice that if you start to develop one, and it can help you see things in your life and allow you to live your life more fully, be there for the good things in life, be able to learn and grow from the more difficult and hardships that we face in life. And really, the foundation of everything that I do is my mindfulness practice. I'm either formally practicing with a seated meditation or Tai Chi or standing meditation or something like that, or I'm informally practicing just throughout my day, checking in with my mind and my body, trying to be present, trying not to judge the judgment that's already always going on inside my head, and trying to be patient and loving and compassionate with myself and everyone else that I meet in my life. So if anyone's
I love that.
Thanks. If they want to learn about all this stuff, the first step I would say is get yourself a mindfulness practice. Jon Kabat-Zinn was my introduction, but there's so many different wonderful sources of information about mindfulness.
A really easy book to read is The Four Agreements.
Yeah, I love that book.
Very, very easy book to get through. And I think I didn't start with that, but
Ed, that was the first book, because I went through, we've spoken about this, like a very deep depression, and I was really in a dark place in my life. And when something clicked in my head and said, you are not going to live your life like this for the rest of your time here, that was the first book that I found, and the first book that really opened my eyes to the possibility of being a more wholehearted, full person. So yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more with you, Ed, than to recommend that book.
Yeah, Four Agreements is a spectacularly simple view on how to be a little bit better about how you take care of yourself, and a little bit better about mindfulness. Even if you only use the first one, which is being impeccable with your word. Like even if you only pay attention to that first chapter, being impeccable with your word, everything else falls into place. You find yourself it trickles down into everything. Like even with like Jen and I have not been together for a very long time, but my story, and not to call anybody out by name or anything like that, but what I've been through as far, romantically and stuff like that. So for me, I put a lot of blame on other people, and in practicing that and thinking about that, because I only read that book like maybe 7 months ago, not even like 5-6 months ago. And I'm like, I thought things like this, but this book has arranged it for, like, you ever find one of those things that you're like, if I only had this 5 years ago? That's what that book was for me. Like, if I only had this a few years ago, like, and that concept of being impeccable with your word trickled down. And now as I'm like, you go through the throes of a relationship and your waves in the relationship, and you start to realize, like, I blamed everybody else for this thing, but it's actually my fault. Then you come back down and you're like, oh, wait a minute. So, like, she said this thing to me and it upset me, and that's okay because that's how she feels. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, and you
have self-awareness.
Yeah, because you stop spouting the bullshit that you used to spout, and the things that you're saying that you're only saying to make your ego feel better, and you don't actually mean it, but you'll defend it to your grave just so that you can be right. Like, all that ridiculous stuff starts to like trickle away and fall away, and is no longer important if you're just impeccable with your word. And what that means is, for those of you who are never going to go pick up that book, what being impeccable with your word means is just like, don't talk shit about yourself. You know what I mean? Don't say things that are negative. Try not to say, try to speak, like, for instance, don't say I'm broke. Say, I'm looking for new ways to make money, because then if you say that, then it's like, oh, well, then I guess I better be out there looking for new ways to make money. And you kind of trick yourself into doing these things. You trick, like I said to myself, instead of being like, shit, I'm stuck in quarantine indefinitely and I can't work and I'm going to be stuck here on unemployment. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I was like, well, I guess I better get to work on the things that I've been meaning to set up for myself, even if I bite off more than I can chew, which is, pushing my workouts, changing new things, starting the personal trainer's course over again, and starting this podcast. And, you know, like that was the things that I decided to do to be productive and proactive with my time, that I felt called in that direction. So whatever it is for anybody, it is what it is. But if I had sat there and was not impeccable with my word and told myself I can, I will, and I want to, I would have sat there and said, I can't, I won't, and I should have before, and
right.
lived through this woe is me kind of hindsight's 2020, dealing with the present moment, you know, being in the past and the present moment instead of being present. It helps with all of those things. And finding a mindfulness practice is absolutely, I think, the first step into really understanding what it is you want to do. Because you can be sold by what's popular. And I understand a lot of people, you know, I like UFC. I love UFC. I love watching them. I love watching the fights. It's very interesting. I like picking apart people's techniques. I love when you see like, oh, that guy's a traditional karate guy. And you see one of his stances come, you know what I mean? Oh, that guy is just a brawler. He's just super tough. And he's got coaches that help him get tougher. You know what I mean? Like, that guy's not really like a martial artist so much as he is just tough as nails and a fighter. And again, I'm not going to call anybody out because then I'm going to catch a bunch of shit in the comments. But not the point. The point is you can be sold on what's popular, which is get a striking coach, do more, you know, do Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you need to train multiple systems, you need to train multiple styles in order to whatever. Or you can find your own study on your own, or you can find a school that's a traditional and complete school. You know, I was lucky enough to find, I mean, dude, I Google mapped the school. If you want to talk about like, once you start taking care of yourself, things fall into place. There might potentially be a higher power that's guiding you to where you want to go. Like, I Google mapped the school and I've been there for 8 years. How ridiculous is that? How crazy is that? Like, I literally was just sitting in my mom's backyard one day, like, hey, I want to kill myself. What's the one thing I want to do that is ridiculous that I want to do for me to make me feel better? Kung Fu's cool. Let me Google map Kung Fu and see if there's any Kung Fu schools. And then I've been there ever since. Like, ridiculous story. And to shed more backstory, if you would be willing to go into the darkness that helped you shed light on your life, you don't have to if you don't want to, but to kind of segue into that, if you do, Chris and I have similar backstories in that we were both mechanics prior to becoming massage therapists and still occasionally tool around on cars. Are you still at your dad's shop?
Yeah.
Are you guys open now?
They were open the whole time.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, you're working alone in the shop. You know, you got to have some way to make money. And
yeah.
You're just working on the car. You just spray it down and then work on it. You know, that makes sense as to why that would be open.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've been a mechanic for how many years?
So, like, since I was a teenager, I started working at the shop. I wasn't doing really mechanical work then, but I'm 38 now. So, like, over 20 years, 22 years or whatever, I've been in the shop. And then once I was like 18, 19, 20, I started just messing around, fixing tires, helping with oil changes and stuff like that. And then that just kept building and building. And I went to school and went to New York Automotive and Diesel Institute. Did you go there? Yeah.
No, I went to Lincoln Tech.
You went to Lincoln, yeah. But then, you know, I did that up until what year? Like 3 years ago, I guess. This is when I went to massage school. 2 years.
Yeah, rough. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was 3 years for me because I had broken my hand and I had to take those couple semesters off. And that's how we met when I came back.
Oh, yeah,
so I think you started. So I think you started just after me.
Like briefly. It did, yeah.
Yeah, you broke up for a second. Yeah, you met me briefly. Is that what you were saying?
Briefly in one of my classes, I remember you came in to like make something up, and then I didn't see you for a while, and then you were in all my classes. So because you had broken your hand.
I came into your Tara's Swedish 1 class to make up.
Yeah.
I had a 9 a.m. med massage class, and I lived 2 hours away. It didn't work out. I was late for that class every single day, and she made me do all kinds of makeup work because I was late. I mean, even like 15 minutes late. Like, you got to stay and XYZ. And then, yeah, there was Tara O'Rourke's Swedish 1 class, right, that I met you in? Yes. Very cool. But, yeah, so...
Did you want me to go deeper into my backstory?
If you want to, you don't have to. I'm not going to make you share when you're not comfortable sharing, but I think it would be really cool for people to hear.
I always feel comfortable sharing what happened in my past because it is a part of who I am today. It's all led up to who I am today, and who I am today is somebody that I'm happy to be.
So please, the floor is yours.
I'm never ashamed of sharing anything. So just growing up as a kid, you know, I was a happy kid. I wasn't an unhappy kid, but there was definitely something underneath all of it, you know, something underneath. And I was very anxious. I was very self-conscious. I was really, there was a lot of shame in me, shame about myself. I was very ashamed of myself, and I don't really know the reason why. I just was. I was ashamed to be who I was. I was ashamed of my body. I was a fat kid too, you know. I always thought I was uglier than everybody else. You know, the whole time, I think a lot of us struggle with these feelings, you know.
Well, we both have the ginger syndrome, which is everybody calls you Carrot Top growing up, and you're like, oh, I hate my hair color.
Hair's not that red. My beard is really red. So when I was a kid, it wasn't really all that red. So I didn't get called Carrot Top.
Mine was redder when I was a kid.
Really?
I was like, oh, dude, I shine. I was so red.
So anyway, as I started getting older, I started to drink a lot, you know, and I would drink until I was, you know, blacked out as a kid, you know, pretty frequently. I was always getting in trouble for drinking.
Talking like high school, like 13, 14 kind of?
Yeah, like the first time I think I was drunk was 13. 13 was the first time I was drunk. And then, you know, throughout high school, whatever, just kept drinking. And it was never an issue. It was always something that was just part of my life. I would drink, you know, like heavily on the weekends and then not drink for a couple days and then drink heavily and drink, not drink, you know. So it was this thing that was kind of in my life that I didn't perceive to be a problem. At the time, I felt like I was just a young guy having fun, you know. But when I look back on it now, I was really trying to cover stuff up. I mean, I would get blackout drunk frequently, and I was always the drunkest guy at the party, you know. And
I understand that. Yeah, I do the same thing. I was always the one people had to carry out.
And as I got older, I never did drugs as a kid. I would smoke weed or whatever, but I never did any drugs. And then when I hit around 30, I started to just take some pills here and there, like nothing really insane, just like Adderall and painkillers and stuff. And that opened me up to a whole new thing. I was like, whoa, I can get fucked up, but I don't have to be falling on the ground. You know what I mean? I could go to work or whatever. And during this time, my depression started to grow as I started to go into drugs, and my shame, the shame that I had for myself, started to build and build and build. And I was distancing myself from my family and distancing.
Now, what was going on outside that was triggering this depression? Or do you feel like it was more so that you had found this substance that your brain liked and it started to fuel your self-loathing as you went deeper and deeper into a depression? Or was there something on the outside that triggered it? Or you're like stuck in a vicious cycle?
I think it's closer to what you said, as far as this is just something that
I'm sorry, can you hear me okay? With the central air has been on. Can you hear me all right?
I'm here. All I hear is you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm sorry. Thank you. Continue.
Okay. I think it's more of I just found something that helped me cover up these feelings of shame and depression throughout the day, you know, so I could be high all day and I don't have to feel what I normally feel, which is this anxiety and this dread and this like fear of dying, you know, like, and all this stuff. But the problem is when the drugs would wear off, I would crash hard for days. Because sometimes I would be up for days. I would be up for like sometimes 5 days, you know, just like, this is bad.
And that's really detrimental to your psyche.
Oh, totally.
Really, is it? I have a childhood friend who has a lot of issues like that, and the sleep deprivation is definitely, I would say, something that you are completely unaware of how damaging it is to your psyche, because you feel in control and hyper alert because of what you've been taking that keeps you awake that long, and then all the other shit, which I'm sure came with it, like coffee and Red Bulls and stuff like that, because you've been up for so long? Was that part of it?
I would drink coffee a little bit, but nothing really. It was really just the drugs that kept me up.
Really, just that? Yeah. Wow.
But I totally agree with you that you don't realize how fucking out of it you really are. I mean, you're like a walking ghost when you've been up for that many days, and you feel like you're fine because you're on drugs, but
you're like dreaming. Are you like dreaming and you don't realize it, or?
It's actually thinking back on, like me driving around and doing all this stuff. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Yeah. So that came to a head, and I just got really suicidal. I just hated myself. I hated who I was. I hated what I was doing. I hated my life. I hated myself. Just really did. And I wanted to die. So I had, it wasn't like a full-blown suicide attempt, but I remember I put my neck in a belt, and I hung it up from like a pull-up bar. And I was really thinking about, I just can't do this anymore.
Wow.
And when I felt like the kind of pressure at a certain point, and something just clicked in me, and like there was a voice in me that said, I don't want to die. I want to live. I'm not going to be like this. It was literally like a snap. And from that point on, I stopped taking drugs. I just stopped. That's why I feel like I was a deeply disturbed substance abuser. I wouldn't classify myself as being addicted. Only because I think other people who truly have addictions and really, really struggle with giving them up, to me, it was a little bit different than that. I was able to, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, I was able to just stop.
I think that's a really, really important separation to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think because addiction is a disease that needs to be treated separately, but also depression and suicide are things that need to be also talked about and people to relate to. So yeah. It's really amazing that you weren't chemically addicted and that you were able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think they're all tied together. The depression, the anxiety leads to the addiction in so many people. And I think I don't know. I mean, it might be a matter of breed, like somebody who's dealt with more trauma and more, the sadness is deeper and it's harder for them to come out. I don't know. I mean, trauma manifests in all of us in so many different ways.
Yes.
But I think it is a distinction that I do like to make, because I don't really classify myself as an addict, But from that point on, from that click, I just decided I'm going to change my life, and it was hard. It's fucking hard, man. It was a really, really hard journey to climb out of that. And it happens step by step by step. And it starts with the awareness that you're living in a way that is not congruent with your spirit and your soul and your heart. And that's I had that awareness that this is not how my true self wants to live. And then everything from that point, every step was just about connecting with that self, the real true me, who is beautiful and wonderful and powerful and capable of anything, just like every single person on this earth. When you connect to that source, there's true beauty and power there, and we are all capable of that connection. And I think that if all of us, there's a lot of things out there right now about how we should change the world and who should stop doing this and what should be done and this. And I think if all of us collectively just take a second and connect here and then breathe with that connection, so much beauty can come out of that. So much change can come out of that, because we're all capable of that,
Right.
you know, and it doesn't take, it's not what I did doesn't, it's not some, it's in all of us, you know,
Right.
we're all capable of doing it. And I think that's ultimately what I try to do with everything that I do is connect deeper and deeper and deeper to that love inside of me, that, you know what I mean? Like that self-love. And through my work, what I hope is that it helps people connect to that within themselves in whatever way that applies to them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, it's, I don't know a good way to put it, but there is almost a solidarity in people who have faced, those suicidal moments and tendencies together. Because I feel like people who haven't experienced that shy away from talking about it or from relating to people who've gone through it. I feel like it's very taboo to talk about having wanted to kill yourself in the past. And I think it's very important to talk about. I think it's very, very important to talk about. And I love that and thank you for sharing your feelings there. You know, I'm sorry?
I think that some people also shy away from it because they're still connected to the shame of it. You know, if you're still connected to that shame and you're still identifying with that shame, you're not going to want to go there. You're not going to want to talk about that because that just makes you feel bad. It makes you think you're a bad person. And you're not. None of us are bad people for whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever it is that we're engaging in, we tend to think that we're terrible people for doing it. Brian Stevenson, he's a lawyer. He has this thing called the Equal Justice Initiative. He's talking about people on death row, but he has this saying about them where he says, you are not the worst thing that you've ever done. And I think that is such a powerful message to send to people who feel vulnerable and ashamed about whatever it is that's happened in their lives or the events that they've partaken in, things that they've done. You are not the worst thing that you have ever done. And you are a human being who deserves compassion. And I believe that with everybody. So I think
absolutely
people who are still attached to that shame, you know, are going to shy away from talking about that.
Yes.
And
100%. You know, like you have to, you know, you can't just talk about it, you know, you have to be in like the right environment, the right room, the tone has to be right. You can't admit it in certain sense. You'll be having a conversation with somebody and have to like circumvent those parts of your life if you don't want to bring down the room, you know. But it's like when you are somebody who has experienced it, that can be a difficult way to be because it becomes so easy to talk about. It becomes so like, yeah, I went through that and I got out of it. You know, it's like, oh yeah, well, I like talking about it because I like the feeling of reliving coming out of it. It's not like talking about it. Yes, of course, obviously you remember how you felt, you remember what you went through, but it's your stages in your trauma and your whatever form of PTSD you have from those moments in your life and how far you've come to you know, like how much you've come to terms with those things that have happened and how much healing has happened since then. You know, we're both obviously very blessed to be in places where we are healed enough that we can try to help others. It's like I was talking to my mother the other day and I said to her, I was like, how the hell are you supposed to take people to the top of the mountain with you unless you've climbed up ahead of them? You have to climb up ahead of them and be able to reach back. There's no way in hell you're getting somebody else to the top of the mountain by holding them on top of you and pushing up. Because you need to be able to climb and get to a certain foothold and be able to hold yourself there to take a hand off and reach back down and help somebody. And that's kind of where you get to in your place in healing, where you feel like you're at this point where you're like, okay, I'm at this level, you know, I'm at this level and I feel good about me. And what's the next step? What can I do? Oh, I have to help everybody else who might not be able to make it there. And it's very personal for me because I lost a friend to suicide a number of years ago. And as somebody who wanted to kill themselves, I had just come out of that. And it was like my first or second year. No, it was just before I started training. And
that's so heartbreaking, isn't it?
It was just before I had started training, and I was dealing with those emotions, and I was dealing with wanting to kill myself, and then I had to go and bury somebody who had done exactly what you had stopped yourself from doing.
Isn't that
That's
heartbreaking to think that if your friend, you know what I mean, like
if he had if he the me that he knew then, if that me was me now, I might have been able to help. I might have been able to identify that something was going on, and I might have had the confidence because I saw him a couple nights before it happened. If I had had the and I knew something was fucked up, but I was just like, he's probably just being him. He gets like this, you know? And
yeah,
I didn't think about it. And the next thing, he's gone. And you can't go back and change that, you know? We celebrate, him and his best friend had this week-long celebration in July every year, and they still do it. They call it Chillness. Instead of Christmas, they call it Chillness. There's a lit-up palm tree instead, you know? Like
really funny.
yeah, you know, John had a lot of personality. He was a really, really wonderful person to be around. And it's so sad that we had to lose him because of that, because he was his own worst enemy and he took his own life. You know, like what a damage that did to the group, to the town. It was a town forever changed. Groups of friends that since then many others have passed away. Not because of him, but just because that's the town that it was. You know, substance abuse and stuff like that. There was a lot of that going on. That was why I at that point had kind of started to distance myself from that group in general, because I needed to get away from. You always knew that if I was hanging out with townies, I was doing bad things. You know what I mean? I had started to distance myself from that. But if me now had a chance to conversate with me then and say like, hey, these are the things you should look out for. Maybe John needs some help. Maybe you should go talk to him. Maybe you should mention something about how he's acting or feeling. You know, maybe he'll open up to you and help, and maybe that won't have to happen. Maybe he'll have a breakdown and he'll be pissed and he'll scream and he'll cry. Maybe that's what he needs to do if you call somebody out on their shit. And then people can listen to my story, can listen to your story, and can know that there's a way out. And it might not be this textbook 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. Like, here's what you have to do is first of all, you got to be able to afford a therapist. So if you can't afford a therapist, you're fucked, because you got to be able to afford a therapist, and then you got to go to therapy every week, and then you got to take the pills that they give you. And then this is the story that people are told, that that's what they have to do. But there's ways for them to help themselves, to save themselves. And if there is a higher power out there, if there is more out there, that's what you were saved by. And you tap into that at your highest moments and at your lowest moments. And when you're at your lowest, you are shedding away all those barriers between your spiritual connection. You're shedding away all those things that you wrap around this idea of who you are, and you really truly connect with your subconscious being the antenna to the divine.
Yeah. And I think
you tap into that and you get told, I can't do this. I have a job. I have a mission. I have things to do. And look at where you are now. You know what I mean?
I think the thing that's so hard to see, right, when you're in that place of just your lowest point, all you can see is how low you are, right? But the beauty of that point is that at that point, you are in a space of immense potential for opening up and healing. You know, like there's so much there to heal from. And it's so hard to shift that perspective from, oh my God, my life is so terrible, to, oh my God, this is how my life is, but look at how much change is available to me in this moment. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. You feel stuck and you feel like this is who I am and this is what I'm capable of doing and this is all that there ever will be, instead of taking it, like you had said earlier, baby step by baby step by baby step by baby step. And that same concept is then personified in the martial arts, because, you know, baby step by baby step by baby step by baby step, you improve and learn and grow, and you tap into those deeper parts of you that you might not have had the confidence to overcome or to deal with, you know? So after that point, you had the belt and you had tried to take your own life, and you knew that there was you knew that you couldn't do that, and you had stopped. Now, after that moment, you had stopped taking pills and stopped doing drugs altogether.
Yeah.
Were you still drinking at all?
For a little while. So I was still drinking for not much longer after that. I realized that I would occasionally drink here and there, but it was continuously like dwindling away from my life, you know? And then I got to the point where it was like I hadn't drank in like over a month or 2 months or whatever, and I went to a party and people were drinking, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to have less fun if I start to drink than I would if I would just go and be myself, you know?
Right.
So.
That's how I feel about cigarettes now.
Oh, yeah. Cigarettes.
It's like, what's the...
Cigarettes.
Oh, you smoke cigarettes too?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, I haven't smoked in a while, actually.
Yeah, cigarettes, they just destroy your body.
Everything. Everything. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's like, so let's go off on a limb here, and let's just say that some conspiracies may be true. For instance, like Big Pharma wants to keep us sick. Let's just say that's true. Would cigarettes not be the perfect delivery system to keep you sick? Because you're instantly addicted to them almost as bad as crack. You want one all the time, and the addiction lasts for years. Like, I know I shouldn't smoke a cigarette. But, like, I smelt one yesterday and was like, oh. You know what I mean? Like, and you think about it. But I know that that's just my brain remembering. I was talking to Jenny's sister, and we related it to, like, you know that if you have one now, it's going to taste like shit, and it's going to be terrible, and it's going to be awful, and you're going to have a bad time. But what your brain remembers, I think this is an important thing to think about with addiction too, what your brain remembers is the last time you had a good experience with it, right? That's what your brain holds on to. And the last time you had a good experience with a cigarette is when you were super addicted, and then you had one to alleviate your craving. So you have to smoke for a month to get back to the level of addiction you were at, so that you could then go like a day without a cigarette and be miserable all day, and then finally have one and be like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, that's what you have to do in order to experience that again. So it's hard for some people to accept the fact that that good feeling is gone forever. And I think that's what's really difficult about people overcoming their issues with substances, especially when they're potentially, I wonder how many people believe that they're truly addicted yet are in a situation like you where they could have given the right inspiration and turned it around.
Well, that's where mindfulness, I think, is so powerful, because mindfulness is just practicing being with yourself in whatever the present moment presents, right? So when you start to just sit there and be with yourself, all these thoughts and things pop up, and you start to gain the skill of letting them pop up and then letting them go away. So just like a craving will pop up and your mind will start, it'll start making all these like the ideas about how nice it's going to be. You can detach from that and just become the witnessing presence of that mental phenomena, that mental thought, that mental feeling, you know? And that's where I think mindfulness is so applicable and practical to daily life for anybody, you know, because we're all stuck in these habitual thought patterns that are just running on autopilot. I need a cigarette. And you're just kind of stuck in that, going for the ride. But when you learn to practice mindfulness and you learn to step back from that and just witness that activity of the mind without investing your sense of self in it, it now gives you the conscious choice to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to engage in this cigarette mindfully and see how I like it. Or I'm going to consciously choose not to, and feel how that makes me feel and think, you know? So it's I think it's just the most amazing practice. That's so practical.
You can definitely tell the difference between people who have never had a mindfulness practice and people who have had a mindfulness practice. And there's also a huge, I think it's a really, might not sound like it's going to connect, but bear with me, okay? I think it's very, very important for the times that we're in to understand that we are all one people, and that's where a lot of the differences come in. People are too people are too stubborn and stuck up to realize the importance of the phrase Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? People are too stubborn and stuck up to realize why it's so important that we hold up that community and why we do say and remind everybody that Black lives do matter. And that's the purpose of that. Not to denote that all lives matter or that blue lives matter or that da-da-da-da-da. It's like, of course, all life matters. Of course it does. But right now what we are doing is we are holding up the Black community in our support, and we are trying to help them by using Black Lives Matter as the phrase of the time. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but you understand what I'm talking about.
I totally understand what you're talking about, and I totally agree with you. Do you know the comedian Michael Shea?
Yes.
There's a video like that I've seen circulating on Instagram, whatever, and it's so funny. He's like,
he's the one that does the weekly update with on SNL. Yeah.
Get madder. We can't even get madder. He's like, we can't even say Black Lives Matter and without somebody else saying all lives matter. And then he related to, that's like somebody coming home from work and his wife saying, honey, do you love me? And he goes, baby, what are you talking about? I love everybody. You know, which I just thought was like,
that's hilarious.
Like, yeah. And
yeah,
then
of course. But now maybe people would be able to see past their own bullshit if they had a mindfulness practice and understood that, like, maybe turn off the cacophony of the media. Like, I took a break from doing this show for as long as I did for three reasons. One, I hit a depression I had to get myself out of. So remember, people who are dealing with your shit, it's going to come back, and you're going to have to battle it more than once, and that's normal. Two was I hit a point where I felt like my voice wasn't important, and not necessarily my voice wasn't important, but that I had nothing to say that was going to add to things as I myself was sifting through and mentally processing and figuring out what was going on with the world. And then three, that I wanted to not take up bandwidth from people's feeds, and I wanted them to be able to just kind of focus on what they wanted to focus on, and I didn't want to be a voice in that moment. Now I feel like I'm finally ready to start to speak and to start to use this platform. You know what I mean? But in the way that this connects is, in the same way it's difficult for us to find our own and voice our own opinions, and that we may latch on to headline opinions. You know what I mean? I saw this article, I didn't read it, but this happened. Can you believe that? I saw this article, I didn't read it, but the headline said this. Can you believe that? I saw this 20-second video that showed me something really shitty. So that means that's what's happening everywhere. You know what I mean? And also what the media chooses to talk about. Now notice that all anybody can talk about is not the fact that people are still peacefully protesting about a matter that is not resolved. You know what I mean? A matter that is not resolved. But all we're talking about is the fact that there's more corona cases in Florida. You know what I mean? Where is the media steering us? Where are we being told to think and believe? We're being told to be in this anxious state where we're going to push buttons to buy stuff real quick, and we're going to stimulate the economy that way. You know what I mean? We're going to push buttons to buy stuff, and people are going to make money off of us. And you need this, so buy it. You need this, so buy it. You need this, so buy it. By the way, you need this, and this protection. You need this insurance, and you need that. So you need to spend all your wealth as an American on maintaining your right to live in America. You know? So we're stuck in this cycle. We're stuck in this cyclical existence of being so stressed out that we're not going to be able to survive, that we then latch on to these beliefs that make us feel better about the cycle that we're stuck in, and then repeat behaviors that sling us right back through the cycle, and then you hit that gravity well again, and you go back into orbit. You go back into orbit around the sun that is your own bullshit. And what you're trying to do is veer off and explore what could possibly potentially be out there in space. But the problem with exploring space is that there's so much more unknown than there is known. So people cling to what they know, they cling to their belief systems, and we would rather argue and fight to stay in this cycle, in this loop, than we would to perhaps and potentially elevate our consciousness and elevate our ability to understand and process information through mindfulness, that we could then be better versions of ourselves, and these issues wouldn't have to happen in the first place. Could you imagine if that son of a bitch that was kneeling on his neck had a mindfulness practice?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Could you imagine if we had these people who are so full of hate and so full of rage and so without empathy and without the ability to look at the ripples that they cause in the pond. If they were practicing mindfulness, they would know exactly what each pebble cast would do and where those ripples would end up. But that comes with great power comes great responsibility. Then all of a sudden you find yourself thinking about, how can I live a more enriching and fulfilling life? And I love I love that you were like this universal confirmation that I had met in school, because I was worried because I was too old and ditching a career. And here you are, older than me, and ditching the same career for another one, for the same path, for similar reasons. You know what I mean? And we both have awesome red beards. You know what I mean? So I met you as this like universal confirmation in my journey through school. And I love that you're still, because you're the first person I had talked to about this. And I love that the other interview didn't work out. Like, no offense to her, like, we're going to do it again on Wednesday now that I figured out how to record and like the account is working. But like, I still love that, like, you're the first interview I'm getting to do. I think it's really, really awesome. And I appreciate you coming on and talking to us and telling us your story. So now, after you had, so now we're still at that point where after you had stopped doing pills entirely and you're not drinking anymore, you had gone to that party and you had decided that drinking wasn't for you. Have you drunk since? Have you had, is that a word? Have you had a drink since?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few here and there, maybe like that was like 5 years ago, I guess, maybe a little bit more. The last time I really I had like 6 beers and I was like, oh. But in the span of 5 years, I probably had 3 drinks.
I know you had a couple tequila shots after we took the boards, right?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? You didn't? Well, I did. I did, and that's why I don't remember if you did or didn't. But we did have a good time at the singing karaoke afterwards.
I wasn't there.
You didn't come to that either? God, I am outing myself for a bad time. I
was at the restaurant and I had a great time.
Yeah, you were at the yes. And then we asked you to come and then you didn't, and then it was me and Vincent and Olivia and there was Jakeling. That's who it was. It was Jakeling. Yeah, that's who it was. I like in my mind I put you there, but then I'm thinking about the karaoke room and I'm like, you weren't there. There's video of that I hope never surfaces. I hope it never ever comes out.
I would have sang some mean karaoke if I was there, man.
Oh, dude, I know you would have. You're very outgoing. You're a very, very outgoing person. But anyway, so now you're at this point where you're now clean, and how are you dealing with your psyche? How are you dealing with your day-to-day at this point?
So you mentioned earlier when you were talking about in the context of relationships, how you started to see, and you were doing this I like that little thing.
Yeah.
I started to see this like kind of roller coaster where you were blaming everything on other people, on their actions, but you started to realize, wait a minute, I'm the common denominator here. This, like maybe this is my act, maybe these feelings are my responsibility, right?
Right.
And that's kind of where I went from there. So I stopped blaming everybody for what was wrong in my life. I stopped blaming family members for me not being happy with my work situation. I stopped blaming my partner for interpersonal troubles that we were having and my own anger. And I started to take responsibility for those things. And I started to say, wait a minute, I have the power I have the power over how I think and I feel.
Mm.
And it's not as simple as, hey, I got the power now. Everything. I got the power. Got the power now.
I got the power.
That was good. It's a journey where you're patient with yourself, and you start to become aware of how your feelings are manifesting throughout the day, and then through that awareness, you can start to say, wait a minute, I don't need to be angry at this person right now. He just didn't hold a door for me as I was going into a store. I don't have to be angry at this guy. This guy, he could be the nicest guy. This could be my best friend that I never met. But here I am already limiting the possibilities by saying this guy's an asshole because he didn't hold the door for me, when I don't know what the context. Maybe he doesn't hold doors for anybody ever. Maybe he didn't know I was coming, whatever. I started to see that as, okay, I don't have to be angry right now. You know what I mean? I can allow that anger to come up, but I don't have to live in it.
Would
I
your
think
anger come up and then you would want to like backtrack, have a drink, do a pill, something like that?
no. That stuff went away. I no longer used substances as a numbing or coping mechanism. I no longer did that because I didn't want to numb myself anymore. Everything I was doing was about, because to me the numbing is fear. We numb out of fear. We really don't want to feel these things. So to me, the strength came in allowing the fear to be there, but saying, you can exist here, fear, but I'm strong enough to be with you and maintain my integrity and maintain my strength. And that's where the power came for me. So I didn't want to numb anymore. I didn't want to use drugs. I didn't want to drink. I wanted to exercise the strength of my mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
I think that's pretty cool. I think that's really, really awesome. Yeah, that's a really interesting take, like it's very rare to meet a person who can take a situation like that and then just say goodbye to it. I mean, like I myself did not have that fortitude or that strength, or that discipline to be able to have that moment and completely snap and then live one way for the duration. I definitely did the whole double life thing for multiple times. I would, and then I wouldn't, and then I would, and then I wouldn't, and then I would, and then I wouldn't. And I realized for me, I was, instead of this orbit, right? You're in this orbit and then you break off and you find another orbit around something else and it slingshots you back to the original one, and that would be my pattern, would be like healthy relationship, slingshot off, unhealthy relationship, slingshot back, healthy relationship, ruin that. And then, you know what I mean? And then go back and then slingshot it back to unhealthy relationship. And then all relationships eventually just became unhealthy. Yeah. I lost a lot of friends, there were a lot of partners that I had that I look back and I go, well, I really did that wrong. And she's a very good person. And then other partners where it was like, I don't know why I even attempted that, because I knew that was going to blow up in my face. I knew going into that, this was going to be a really difficult thing. And for me, I think not having parental guidance, not to say that I didn't have any parental guidance, but I mean, I never met my dad. My mom was in school and stuff like that. Yeah.
The podcast. I didn't know that about you.
Really? And we never talked about that in school, but yeah, I never met my father, and my grandfather passed when I was 13, and I grew up in his house. So he was the dad that raised me, he was that figure in my life. He taught me how to ride a bike. He played catch with me in the backyard. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's the one that when I was getting bullied, when I was in kindergarten or first grade, I was getting bullied by some kid who was in sixth grade. He was 11 or 12,
Sure.
And yeah, because I was a redhead. I was the ginger on the bus, and he would be making fun of me, and he pissed me off. And my grandfather said, hit him. I stood up on the seat and I punched him in the face, at 5 or 6 years old. That was my grandfather, was the one. And it wasn't even so much that violence is the answer, but defend yourself. He also comes from a time that if somebody talks to you and you punch them in the face, you're well within your rights. You know what I mean? If you had a scuffle about a thing, it wasn't like you were taking a chair and beating up, killing somebody. It's you knock him around a little bit and teach him a lesson. He's from a time period where that is 100% totally permissible and acceptable. And that was, but just even then, to defend yourself, to back yourself up, to not let yourself be bullied. He was the one that tried to instill those lessons. And then when he passed, I was like, oh my God, that's when I really started to rebel, and everything took a turn. And I felt unloved by my mom, who was 21 when she had me. You know what I mean? She was very much a kid. I don't have any kids now, and I'm turning 31 on Thursday. And
birthday, man.
Thank you. I'm turning 31 on Thursday, and I'm doing the math in my head. So I'd be 10. I'd have a 10-year-old. That's a little human being at my age now. And I can barely take care of myself. Yeah. So I wonder about the stress that she must have been under at the time. And again, that same thing of you got to go through your past. At the time. So Mom, if you're listening, at the time, I blamed her for everything. You know what I mean? And she was just living her life. Of course. She married my stepdad. They met when I was in high school. I would get upset with her for being with him, for dating him, for this, that, and the third, because then here's again, my grandfather dies, my father's never around, and my mother's getting a degree and then is also trying to have some kind of social life and find a partner, you know, which is love is something that everybody deserves. So of course you're going to take your time as an individual and say, okay, like here's my pie chart of me. I need this much time for work. I need this much time for school, and I need this much time for my kid. Where's the time for me? I need to make some time for me, and whatever she did in that time is her business. You know what I mean? But then that thing became something else that took more time, and then they had a flourishing relationship, and they've been married for 10 years. You know what I mean? So obviously it was the right decision for her to make, regardless of how I felt about it then. But then I realized I used that feeling of not being loved, and I needed to feel loved all the time. And you feel loved in the place I felt the most love a lot of the time was the bar, because I would go back to my old friends from high school in my early 20s, and then all of a sudden we're passing around shit we shouldn't pass around. And I don't mean marijuana, you know what I mean? We're passing around shit we shouldn't pass around. We're doing things we shouldn't do. And then you live in that kind of thing of like going out on the weekends and kind of recovering all week, or, you know, a weekday in there, you find yourself out until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And here I am, I'm supposed to be this shining example. I'm supposed to be this good person. And then things really started to click into place about the bad habits that I have, you know, and with relationships too, and being like a serial monogamist, constantly finding myself in relationship after relationship, was again, because I'm just trying to feel that love that I didn't feel. And that's also why I think I immediately clung to my teacher as a father figure, because like I needed because I obviously rejected my stepdad for a long time. So like, you know, I needed that father figure to kind of teach me how to be, and I love him to death for it. But he's the first person that's going to tell me if an idea sucks. He's going to tell me if that's dumb. He's going to tell me if that doesn't look good enough. He's going to tell me if I need to improve at something. He's going to tell me if it's just an all-around bad idea, don't do it. You know what I mean? He's not going to sugarcoat stuff and give me a gold star and pat me on my butt, which is another issue I think that we have with the situation today, that mindfulness will help, is that you have kids that are taught their entire lives that they're awesome and special. But if everybody's awesome and special, you're not special. So if none of us are special, then we all owe each other something, right? If none of us are special, then we're all on the same equal level, and everybody deserves love, compassion, a helping hand, all the same as everybody else. And a mindfulness practice really brings you up to that understanding, you know? And I didn't realize that in living my double life, what I was doing and circling back, training really hard and being super awesome, doing everything the right way, and then going back to being an absolute piece of shit, you know? Not an absolute piece of shit, but that's just how I think about it then. But just making some mistakes and not living my life the right way, wasting time doing that and then recovering from it when I could have been working out and recovering from that, or studying and then taking a mental break with my guitar. And that being the push versus recovery, you know, risk and reward.
I think, Ed, that making those mistakes and having those regressions are part of the progress. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm sharing it, you know, and again, not to cut you off, but to people can understand, like there is the absolute miracle of what happened to you, that you can do it and then go, oh, great, I'm done. I'm changing my life. I'm doing it. And then there's people like me who have like kind of ended up in this, you're floating in the pool going like, how'd I get here? You know what I mean? And then you got to swim your way out of it and then dry off and get all that off of you, you know?
Well, it did take me years. You know what I mean? Like I stopped using the drugs right away, but the depression and the anxiety, that was not like magically gone. That's right. You know, that the first step was getting rid of the drugs, and then just learning how to process and cope with the anxiety, which took a long time. And
so then after you got rid of the drugs, when you would get hit with one of those peaks of depression and anxiety, how would you get through it? What would you do?
I would just be with it. I mean, it's really that simple. You know what I mean? So because what I found was the more that I looked to face that depression and anxiety and not run away from it and not numb it, there would just be this like kernel of gratitude or joy that would kind of emerge in those moments. So I would feel depressed and I would feel down, and then I would remember to kind of just be here and be grateful for what I have and what I am,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be some joy that kind of emerged in just being present without trying to change the depression or anxiety. So I think it's kind of like almost paradoxical in the sense that the more you accept the state of mind and body that you're in, and the less you try to fight to change it, and the more you just float with that river, you'll realize that the river is just self-correcting. It will send you down in a balanced path if you don't fight against it. You just gotta stop trying to swim upstream and just be who you are. You can't change who you are by trying to change who you are. who you are will change by living in a state of acceptance,
Slowly allowing yourself to be your most authentic self.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult process because it takes the utmost patience, because all you want to do is change. I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be anxious. All you want to do is change. So to take 20 minutes and just say, I'm not going to change this. I'm just going to sit here and see what happens and be present with what I feel and not judge it. And everything just, you just float in that river and things change and bad feelings come up and bad thoughts come up and then they go. And then joy comes up and gratitude comes up and then they go. It's about being a part of this journey of life for whatever it has to throw at you. So that's really what I did in those moments of depression and anxiety that would come up. Just be with it. And the more I did that, the more courage and strength that I had to stay with it. And then the deeper I would go in, and usually the deeper I would go in, such powerful sadness would come out. I would sob for like 15 minutes sometimes, just pure sobbing. But within that sobbing, crying of sadness, there was laughter and there was happiness and there was this feeling of I'm fucking alive right now. This feeling is life. This is the fucking yin to the yang, man. This is part of it.
Yeah.
I'm fucking
for
alive.
As good as things can get.
And I'm just grateful to be on this journey.
Say that last sentence again. The audio cut out.
I said I'm alive. I'm fucking alive, and I'm just riding the ship,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to be on the journey, and that's really what I would do, is just try to practice gratitude.
Yeah. Mindfulness will lead to gratitude, will lead to an improvement in your life. And I like that you described it as paradoxical, because it is almost paradoxical. It's like you try to
the opposite course of what you should do. It
seems
seems like
it's like
to change this. Let's do this. Let's get something done. But the truth is like sometimes that's just fighting a fight that's just going to send you back,
Well, Sun Tzu said, it's very, the wise man knows when not to fight, or something like that. It's very terrible. That's not a true quote from The Art of War, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like the smarter warrior knows when not to fight, when to walk away. It's like, people are like, how come you haven't competed more? Why don't you just sign up for Bellator? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And it's like, I don't need to prove myself to anybody. When my teacher says I'm ready to compete, I'll compete. And then when he's, you got to get some trophies, make a name for yourself, then I guess I better fight until I get some trophies, make a name for myself. But until then, I'm just interested in perfecting my craft and being the best me that I can be. And I would love to do those things. Of course, obviously I can't right now, but I would love to do those things. But I wanted to just get to a certain point before I did them and enjoy the ride instead of rushing. You know what I mean? I also knew myself that I wasn't at that level. And it's like, I'm just being honest with myself and saying maybe I need to get a little bit better before I go ahead and I go do those things, But the point that I'm trying to make is that you can put your skills to the test and you can do this and do that but ultimately, aren't you doing it for you? That's the point of it I'm trying to make is aren't you ultimately doing it for you? Aren't you ultimately doing this to improve and be the best version of yourself that you can be? And up until, when this is all over, I will start competing. But up until recently, that hasn't been part of my wheelhouse of things that I wanted to do to improve myself. If when the opportunity presented itself, I definitely jumped on it. I competed once this time last year or 2 years ago, but No, this time last year. But like that was supposed to be the start of that, you know? And the point is, it's like competing is proving to everybody else what you have. Right? So we feel like we have to, I'm telling you, sometimes I make points that don't seem like points at first. So competing is this proof to everybody else that you know what you're doing. And it's to satisfy, you know, it's to prove that you are who you say you are and you do what you do, and that's very important. Don't get me wrong, especially in the community of martial arts. But the point I'm trying to make with that is, who cares? Isn't it all about you? Isn't it all about what you can do? Isn't it all about your own level of self-improvement? You don't have to prove anything to anybody. And whatever you're feeling or whatever it is you're doing or whatever it is you're working on is completely valid so long as you're actually getting up and doing the work, which is like the cure for depression, is to stop thinking about doing shit and just to get up and do it. You know? It's like, so you spend so much time. And for me, a lot of times when I hit those low points, I spend a lot of time thinking about doing stuff. And I spend a lot of my time planning on how I'm going to do stuff. And I don't just jump in. Because sometimes when you jump in, you make mistakes, like I did the other day when I didn't get to do the interview because I made a mistake and just assumed that shit would work, and I didn't even look into how it would work. You know what I mean? And then there's other times where you do that and you fuck up until you stop fucking it up. Just fuck it up until you stop fucking it up. Again, this is the whole thing martial arts teaches you. It's like, that form sucks. It's like, great, do it 1,000 more times until it looks better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do it 1,000 more times until it looks better. I don't understand the concept of moving the whole body in unison in Tai Chi yet. Oh, well, you will. Well, how? How do I learn it? By doing Tai Chi and understanding the concept that your body moves in one, as one. But I don't get it. My body isn't moving as one. Well, that's okay. Just keep doing it until your body moves as one. Well, how am I supposed to learn how to move my body as one? Move your body as one. That's how you learn. It's like this cycle that makes no sense. It's like you have to do it in order to do it. But you don't know how to do it yet. So you're afraid of doing it. So you don't do it. And then you wonder about that thing that you wish you could do. You know?
Yeah. No, totally.
Just start. Just start. Just make the commitment. Like if you had said, well, like me with cigarettes, like let's say your pills with cigarettes, like it's the same fucking thing. Like, well, you know, it's going to be a really stressful week, so I guess I better still do them. Because I got a job at the shop that's really pissing me off. So I guess I better keep doing those pills so that I don't flip out on anybody or throw my wrench through the car window. You know what I mean? Like, and then that thought process keeps you in that loop. I better not. I got to lose weight before I go to the gym. Ridiculous, you know? And then I feel like a lot of times, like you had said, that darkness, that pit that you sit in, that, how did you describe it? The sobbing and its purpose, you know what I mean? How many tough guys are out there that don't realize that that's part of what they need? That it's okay to cry, it's okay to sob. It doesn't make you weaker, it actually makes you stronger. If you can admit your emotions and you can get through them, how much stronger of an individual you are.
To me, the ultimate expression of strength is allowing yourself to be vulnerable. That to me is the ultimate expression of strength.
And courage. It takes courage to be able to get through those things. And it takes courage to maybe look back and say that I was wrong. You know what I mean? How many situations did you look back and that you put blame on somebody else and you realize that it was you who allowed that situation to be in the first place? Yeah. You know what I mean? And now how long into this journey did it take you to decide that you wanted to be a massage therapist, and why massage therapy?
So I guess right around that time that I stopped doing drugs and everything, I was getting into, it was really meditation, right? So meditation just kept deepening and deepening for me, and mindfulness just kept bringing all these new kind of insights into my life, and I felt so much more fully present and like I was really living my life in a way that I hadn't before. It's like a light turned on, and it's like I wasn't really living, I wasn't really alive then, you know. Now I feel like I'm starting to become alive and wake up. And that didn't really kind of jive with the shop environment, you know, like working in the shop and everything's about rushing and doing this and doing that. And like, initially what I wanted to do was I wanted to work, because the most impactful thing for me was the mental and emotional journey that I went on. That's the realm that I really wanted to work within. I wanted to help people discover mindfulness and use it to combat stress and anxiety and depression. But that seemed like a road that was going to be really long to take, you know? It seemed like I would have to go back and become a doctor or something like that. So I saw massage therapy as a wonderful, just kind of quick entrance into the world of helping people, right? And it also, because martial arts and Qigong were such a big part of my life, it was also going to embrace that kind of physical aspect of healing, which I feel is if you want to heal from depression and anxiety, move your body, heal your body.
Yes, motion is lotion.
Absolutely. You know, you cannot ignore that aspect of healing. It's because it's not just happening in your mind. It's happening throughout your entire body, your entire existence. It's all happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I feel like a lot of times is that.
So then I decided.
Yeah.
What? I missed you.
I was saying that, like, that emotional release that people experience in their tissues when you're doing massage, you know, you find those emotions trapped in their tissues, which is a whole concept for another episode. But
the way in which we move is such an emotional expression. Our movement is an expression of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you cannot, like, somebody who kind of walks around like this, that's communicating an emotional experience.
I used to avoid Tai Chi class. I used to avoid Tai Chi class because I would be faced with my shit. And I used to, like, be in Tai Chi class and hit this mood and be like, why am I so depressed right now? Oh my God, why do I feel so awful, you know? And
you were yourself. And that was in there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And we're moving and it's like, oh, and then, like, you know, there were points where, like, we're doing stretches and it's like, I want to start crying. You know what I mean? For some reason.
Oh,
and
dude,
then that was in the beginning. I don't really get like that anymore. You know, now it's like you feel something and it processes, and I'm finally at a level where it's like I can let things flow and purge. You know what I mean?
Energetic, kind of just flowing. Yeah, I know what you mean. Absolutely.
That's why we have our system is a little different because it's very much a family system. You know, there's a lot of stuff, like, even like all the stuff I put on the internet, there's stuff that you'll never see on the web because it's ours. You know what I mean? So we don't put any of it on the web because you have to be part of the family in order to learn that kind of stuff. But even in the stuff that's like we learned the 8 brocades in school. We learned the 8 brocades and that version of the Yang style because that's the one that they do publicly in China. You know what I mean? So it's very much so information that everybody can have. That's what you'll find in books. There's a lot of family systems that are like that. There's such a wealth of knowledge that we don't even know how much of a wealth of knowledge there is hidden, you know, in all these family systems. But that, like, for ours, for instance, you know, like, say the Yang style form, you know, because we have our version of the Yang style as well. I'll say to somebody, will be like, oh God, I need ibuprofen, but they train with me. And I'll be like, no, you don't. You need to go through the Yang style form. You know what I mean? My back hurts. My this hurts. My that. Oh, we'll do the 8 elixirs every day. Like 8 brocades, our family system has the 8 elixirs. Everybody else uses the 8 brocades. We use the 8 elixirs. It's a very similar concept of just that stationary kind of like side-to-side movement and getting every muscle in your body activated and stretched as well through just like a standing posture movement. So we use the 8 elixirs. And I'm like, that'll open up your whole body if you do it right. And I'm like, well, how do I know I'm doing it right? It's like, we'll keep doing it. And then you get stuck back in that loop again. Like, give yourself the time to heal. Let yourself experience the stuff and understand that it's not going to happen overnight, that it's going to be a constant lifelong struggle and battle. And I feel like that's why a lot of people avoid mindfulness to begin with, because they never even look what happened to us. Our whole lives get turned upside down and you become a different person. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to do that. You know what I mean? It's a big commitment.
It takes commitment. It takes, yeah, it definitely does.
It's a big commitment. but I'm so much more in love with me now than I would have ever been with the person that I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I value myself so much more now than I ever would the person that I used to be, you know?
Or it could be the other way around, that you are this better person only because you've learned to love yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is also true.
Love yourself, and now the person that you are is expressing love. You know, it's expressing this other side of you that was suppressed.
Did you work with anybody aside from your dad when you had decided to go back to school for massage therapy?
Not really. I worked
No.
briefly for another place, but mostly just my dad.
How did he feel about that decision?
Yeah, he was obviously. It was a mixed thing, you know, like, because we had some issues over the past couple of years prior to that, where it was like there was a separation and I stopped working there for a little while and then I came back. But you know, my dad is nothing but amazing and supportive of me, and he was you know, both excited and disappointed, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
like he's excited that you wanted to do something else with your life, but he was also disappointed that you weren't going to be working together all day every day.
Yeah, I mean, because it was a hard decision to make. I mean, that place still is like a part of me. You know what I mean? It's like this place that I've been as a kid, and so that was a difficult decision to make. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. I got laughed out of the shop.
Did you?
I got laughed out of the shop. Yeah, I was working in a diesel shop, and it was just after Trump had gotten elected, and you know there was a whole huge divide then. And I was very much so on one side. And I refused to vote for Hillary. I refused to vote for Trump, and I voted I wrote in Bernie because he wasn't on the ballot at that point. I wrote in Bernie just to you know, and some people had their opinions about that. I got into a lot of arguments over protest voting, but with the attitude in the shop, I realized I could no longer be in that environment and survive and continue to improve. And I was listening to acupuncture podcasts because I was so interested in how acupuncture and Tai Chi coalesce. And I wanted to become an acupuncturist, but there is, of course, the caveat that I dropped out of high school. So I needed an associate's degree. And much like you, I figured that massage therapy would be a good foot in the door. And now here I am. I'm like, I am a massage therapist. This is a thing that I do. You know what I mean? And fell in love with it entirely. And I'm not too bad. Yeah, very gifted. So it is. We're at 2 hours now. I know, we've been going. So yeah, we've been going. Which I think is awesome. But I do have to. I do have a couple other things I got to get done today. So if you have anything you want to plug before, or you know what, let's close it out. So you found yourself in massage school, right? Let's finish your story. I don't care how long it takes. But you found yourself in massage school.
Discovered myofascial release and craniosacral therapy. Fell in love with how they were just an extension of my meditation and my Tai Chi practice, and fell in love with the connection of the client-therapist relationship and the healing that can occur within that relationship for both parties. For me, I feel like I heal every day that I treat.
Yes, 100%. My clients help me heal as much as I help them heal. 1,000%. So explain to me a little bit about craniosacral therapy, because we talked all about myofascial, and explain to me a little bit what craniosacral is.
So craniosacral therapy is also a type of system that originated within osteopathic medicine. So osteopaths believe that, like I said way earlier in our talk, the human body is a self-regulating system. If you give it the correct influences, if you create the correct environment, our body will self-regulate and self-heal. So craniosacral started out as really more mechanistic. So there was a guy, I think Sutherland was the first guy. I think it was Sutherland. He was the guy who kind of started it. And he started with these crazy experiments of like, he believed that the bones in the skull, so if you look at them disarticulated, if they're separated, you can see there's like these little bevels, like almost like a saw, right? So when he looked at that, he said that he had this flash of inspiration that they're beveled like the gills of a fish for a primary respiration. So he came up with this idea because at the time it was believed that cranial bones are completely fused and there's no movement. So he started to do all these experiments to test the movement. One of them being completely like created this device that completely would keep his skull like restricted. And he started to get all messed up and everything. So he stopped doing that. But throughout the course of his life, he really started to examine and research and study and treat the movement of the cranial bones and the flow of cerebrospinal fluid through the spine down into the sacrum and up, right? So there's this flow, this rhythm. So there's like what they call a flexion and extension. So the bones will move like this in relation to each other. The sphenoid bone will have this somewhat like of a rocking movement. The sphenoid bone, which is behind here, connects, and there's the wings of them come out over here. But what really, so there's another branch of that created by, I don't know if Franklin Sills Franklin Sutherland, I think towards the end started to do something called biodynamic craniosacral. So this idea of primary respiration, so it's really a very spiritual practice. The idea is that within each of us, right, there is a blueprint for health. We're born with this blueprint for health, right? And that blueprint expresses itself through what they call primary respiration. And it's not a respiration of the diaphragm breathing in air. It's this fluctuation of the fluid dynamics of our body. So it originates in the cerebrospinal fluid, but it translates throughout our entire bodies. So what biodynamic craniosacral does is it's really just like a mindfulness practice. So you're just feeling for the rhythms, which they have several, they call them tides. So there's the short tide, which is I think about 60 seconds usually. It's just kind of, I'm sorry, that's the medium tide, it's like 60 seconds. The short tide is really almost like a breath. And there's this fluctuation of the cranium bones that expresses throughout the fluid dynamics of our system. So the fluids in our connective tissue, our blood, the fluid within our osseous structures in our bones. And it's really about restoring that rhythm so that healing can take place within the person.
Right.
So it's about bringing up to the level of awareness this healing force that is within all of us. And it's wonderful, man. It's a terrific practice. I think it's just a beautiful, wonderful practice that has really great clinical results.
That's awesome. And where can people, when this is all over, are you back to work in massage right now?
I'm working at Wolf Moon Wellness.
You're still at Wolf Moon? Okay, so you can find Chris at Wolf Moon Wellness in Holbrook. And that's and everybody there is they're a wonderful team. John and Mary Lesnowski, and I hope I said that right. John and Mary Lesnowski, and Chris is their resident massage therapist. They're really, really wonderful team and wonderful people.
If
with an excellent, yeah.
If anyone watching or listening to this wants to make an appointment, you can go to the website, or you can just call me or text me directly. So I can get my phone number in.
I mean, if you want, that's up to you. If it's your business phone number, text it to me, and I'll put it in the description of the episode. And then you can say it right here. So what's your phone number?
It's 516-512-0834.
If this blows up, you're going to really regret doing that. Or you won't. You'll have lots of clients. We're both in the Long Island area, guys. So if you want to see Chris and you want to experience that myofascial release, you can find him there at Wolf Moon Wellness. You can find me on Instagram at TempleLMT, and then the business at Temple_. wellness underscore on Instagram. If you'd like to donate to the show, $templelnt11 on Cash App, or reach out to me directly. The show's available everywhere. I'm going to try to put this video up on YouTube. I'm going to cut it with the other angle, try and make it look nice and fresh, see if that works out. I'd love to have you on again in the future and talk more about myofascial release and what it can do, and just, you know, see where we're at that update. We got to work a barter out too. We definitely have to work a barter out, or just hang out and hit the beach. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, dude. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. And again, guys, if you're watching this, please go to shaolinmohan.com if you're interested in trying out Tai Chi classes or Kung Fu classes. I will see you there, and I hope to see everybody soon. Chris, thanks again. It was really such a pleasure seeing you and talking to you, and we got to get together soon.
Thank you.
We're antibody free, so we've been good.
Okay, cool. I had a blast. This was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was awesome, dude. I'll let you know. I'll let you know as soon as it's out. I'll message you. Okay. Thanks, brother.
Hi, buddy.
Have a good one.
I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day, dude.
Thanks.
4, 3, 2.